Hello everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Out of the Fog. I'm your host, Laurabel Mba. On tonight's episode, we will be joined by Brian Cherwick, who is a member of Kubasonics, a Ukrainian native, and a wonderful musician who'll be performing for us this evening. We'll also get a chance to speak with Minister Byrne about the Ukrainian Help Desk. So sit back, relax, and join us for an in-depth episode on the Ukrainian crisis.
You're watching Rogers TV St. John's.
Yeah, a little bit of duct tape will fix her. She'll be flying again in no time. Hi, I'm Darren Hand, host of Pocket Universe. Each week we feature a variety of artists, filmmakers, writers, and more.
I see a monument or landmark, I want to capture that.
It allows you to make circular motions.
I'm always impressed with the amount of talent that's here on the Rock. Join me for Pocket Universe on Rogers TV.
You're watching Rogers TV St. John's.
And welcome back, everyone. We are now joined by Brian Cherwick from Kubasonics. Brian, thank you so much for joining us for such a special episode.
Thanks for having me here.
So let's let people know a little bit about who you are, a little bit about the band, if you don't mind.
Well, we've been playing music here in St. John's probably for the last 6 or 7 years, I guess. And I came to Newfoundland, Labrador 11 years ago. So after being here for a few years and doing a few other things in town, we started playing this Ukrainian music again. Yeah. And it's been a great success for us. People here are so nice. They're so welcoming. They like trying different things, and so we've been able to travel all over the province. We've been right across all of Canada since we've been doing this. Wow. We've been throughout Eastern Europe. We've been down to the Caribbean. So we've been playing our kind of, and what we play is not just Ukrainian music. It's kind of a combination of Ukrainian and traditional Newfoundland music. So we mix the two of those things together often.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So are most members of the band from the Ukraine, or is it a mix of people?
It's a mix of people. Some of the people in the band are directly out of my house because I play with 2 of my older kids. Okay. So they're both professional musicians, and they play with all kinds of other groups as well. And then 2 more people in our group are born Newfoundlanders, and they're just great musicians who have they can play anything, and so they took this on as a challenge, and they're really good at it as well.
Oh my God, that's so fantastic. So there's no way anyone can turn on the TV or turn on the news or the radio without hearing about the war in Ukraine. So what is that like personally for you sitting here?
Well, this is the first time in my life where I have not had to explain to people where Ukraine is. Okay. So if people, before if we mentioned that we're playing Ukrainian music or music is from Ukraine, they say, well, where is that, or what is that, or is that part of Russia? So I think people finally are understanding that Ukraine is not part of Russia. It's its own country, its own culture. And when the worst part of this war broke out 4 weeks ago, it started with a speech by Mr. Putin saying that Ukraine doesn't exist, Ukrainian culture does not exist. We just need to, smarten these people up and bring them back into our fold. And that's not really true. And just by us playing this music in a faraway place like Canada, it proves that there is a culture. That some of the songs we play are hundreds of years old. And most of what I play I've learned from, hearing my grandparents and my great-grandparents and things like that. So, the culture is still alive and growing. I mean, you asked me what it's like. We still have family that live in Ukraine. So my wife was born there, so her parents and her immediate family, her brother still lives there. I still have many, and her extended family, of course. I still have lots of cousins there. And then, through music and through other work that I've done, I've been there to Ukraine many times. So we have a lot of friends some are professional musicians who are now like forced to put their instruments aside and have to pick up a weapon and patrol their neighborhood to make sure their neighbors are safe and things like that. So it's difficult to watch every day what's happening, and especially in those places where bombs and rockets are hitting now. They're hitting schools, orphanages, hospitals, apartment blocks, and there's really no, I mean, there's never any reason for war, but especially to attack civilians in such a way is terrible.
No, that's absolutely horrid to hear and watching in the news and seeing that it's no longer what people are used to thinking typical warfare is looking like, and it's definitely in more civilian populated areas. It's heartbreaking. But you did talk about the richness of the Ukrainian culture, and I know you'll be performing for us today. So do you mind sharing the instruments you'll be performing with?
Well, I brought you two sort of simple instruments today, but they're, again, I keep telling people there's as many different kinds of Ukrainian music as there are of any other kind of culture's music, you know, from classical music, rock music, folk music, all these different things. Today what I brought is this instrument, which is called the dvodentsivka.
Okay, so we're going to say it together to make sure I understand it. Okay, so do you mind repeating it again?
Sure, so it's dvodentsivka.
Dentsivka.
Yeah, dentsivka means a flute with this little notch in the top of it, and dvo means double, so it's like two flutes joined together here.
Okay.
And so I can play one tune here, and a different one, and
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So that's so cool. So each side has its own tune, and together they make a fabulous melody, obviously.
Yeah. So you can play, you know, it's like two people playing at the same time. But it's,
wow.
Yeah. And the second instrument I brought for you, it's this one that's called the Tilenka. And it's a flute, but if I spin it around, you'll see there's no finger holes anywhere.
No.
And how you play it is just by blowing air at different speeds. So the faster you blow the air, the higher the sound goes. So it goes like that. And then I can also put my finger on the end and change each one of those. Like that. And so when you go fast and slow and open and close, you can.
Wow. Okay, and the name of that one?
It's Tilenka.
Tilenka. Okay, yeah. That one I can say a lot easier.
This is found most often kind of in the mountains of Ukraine. And then, like many musical instruments, the instruments don't understand where the borders are. So this is also played in Romania, in Slovakia, some of the other countries that are on other sides of the Carpathian Mountains that run through Ukraine.
Okay. So I know we've talked a little bit about what's going on in Ukraine, but what can people here do if they wanted to help? How can they support the Ukrainians who are abroad?
Well, we've had a few events here in the city already where we've been playing music and asking people to, make donations. One place is the Canadian Red Cross, because they've had a fund, and they're dealing mostly with refugees, so people that are leaving the country of Ukraine, and there's almost 3 million people already who've been trying to escape from this war, so they'll need a lot of help. The other place that we've been directing people to is the Canada-Ukraine Foundation.
Okay.
And so I think their website's cufoundation.ca, and they're helping get aid to people that are still trapped inside Ukraine. So, we see word of these cities that are surrounded by Russian troops, and occasionally a humanitarian aid corridor is allowed to come in, bringing them food, medicine, supplies, things like that. So those people at Canada-Ukraine Foundation are helping to do that.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me and talk about something that's not only near and dear to your heart, but to my heart as well. And we'll be right back, everyone.
It all started when I racked up some serious debt. Interest payments were going up, creditors were calling. Janes and Noseworthy came up with a plan. Knowing that the phone was going to stop ringing and that I was not in this alone was a huge relief. Bankruptcy or a consumer proposal or whatever help you get is not the end. It's just the beginning. A chance to start again with knowledge and support and people in your corner. Are you ready? Get out of debt. It's okay.
Learn more about Leah's story at janesnoseworthy.ca.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, Brian Cherwick.
This is a song that talks about the harsh realities of war, but it's talking about the year of 1914 and the start of the First World War. There are many verses to this, but I'm going to just give you a shortened version of it. The first section, a man says, it's the year of 1914, and I've received a letter that says I have to go off to war. On Saturday night, I'm still home with my family, but Sunday morning, I have to say goodbye to them. In the second section, the man's in the battle, and he says, a bullet flies through the air and hits me in the chest, and the blood from that wound flows down to the river and hopefully will take news to my family. And in the third section, his children are saying to their mother, "Mother, take a handful of sand and sow it on a rock, and if anything ever grows from that rock, that's the day our father will come back home." Штирнастий рочок смутний настав, штирнастий рочок смутний настав, а я на віну листок дістав, а я на віну листок дістав. Суботу вечір ще й вдома бив, суботу вечір ще й вдома бив, неділю рано яся прощав, неділю рано яся прощав. Прощайте, жоно, і ви діти, прощайте, жоно, і ви діти, бо я на війну мушу йти, бо я на війну мушу йти. Летіла куля понад гору, летіла куля понад гору, та й обдарила грудь мою, та й обдарила грудь мою. А з тої рани кров потекла, а з тої рани кров потекла, аж до Дунаю воду несла, аж до Дунаю воду несла. Возьмите, мамцю, піску жменю, возьмите, мамцю, піску жменю, та й посій його по каменю, та й посій його по каменю. Коли той пісок з кам'я зійде, коли той пісок з кам'я зійде, тоді наш нянько
не прийде, тоді наш нянько з війни прийде.
If you have a comment about this program, we'd love to hear it. Email or call us, or send us your feedback through social media.
And welcome back, everyone. We are now joined by Minister Byrne, Minister of Immigration, Population Growth and Skills. Minister, glad to have you.
It's so wonderful to be here and with you.
Thank you so much. So we've been talking a lot about what's going on in the Ukraine and the crisis currently, the war. So what is going on in terms of Newfoundland supporting Ukrainians?
There's a humanitarian crisis underway which demands a global response to a crisis. Canada is stepping up in large measure, but Newfoundland and Labrador is really showing its leadership. The leadership that we've seen in humanitarian crises in the past is coming ahead stronger and better than before. We've established what is known as the Ukrainian Family Desk, a support desk. We recognized very early on that circumstances of the past don't always reflect the situations currently of the moment, of the day. Newfoundland and Labrador has stepped up strong when it came to the Syrian refugee movement, to the Afghanistan refugee repatriation to Canada. It was incredible to see what went on, just the generosity, just the whole experience being felt as in fellowship. Well, the Ukrainian situation is similar, but very different. In the Ukraine, we've had now literally over just about 4 million, verging on 4 million displaced people, families that have been forced across the border. Let's be clear about something. Families, children are being murdered. There's entire neighborhoods that are being destroyed. Cities are under siege. People are in desperate need of assistance. Many have been able to cross over to across the border of Ukraine to Poland and to other countries close by. They're now safe. They're being housed, but there's well over 3 million. The number of displaced people is very significant. Very early on in this crisis, we recognize that this may sound, take some people by surprise. There are 1,400 people in Newfoundland and Labrador who self-identify as being of Ukrainian descent. Many of them contacted me personally, contacted the department, contacted the government, contacted their faith community to try to figure out how can they assist their own family members. And there was a void that was left unfilled, and so we needed to step in and help. So I immediately set up what I'm terming as the Ukraine Family Support Desk. That was to provide assistance to Ukrainians and others who wanted to help out. But we saw very early that maybe many family members of Ukrainians living in Newfoundland and Labrador might want to try to liberate their families. So that was the genesis of the idea. Well, it grew very quickly from there. We saw support coming from every corner of the province, wanting to help out, whether pledging housing, pledging resources, money, everything. It came forward. So we needed to have a conduit to that. And I can tell you that our idea was, our response was so novel that we actually had people calling from the United States. They heard about the Newfoundland and Labrador Ukrainian Family Support Desk, and they actually called up, saying, you're doing what really needs to be done, so how can we help it? They were calling us to marshal their resources. So now it's taken one step further. We're in we're in Poland.
Okay.
We've actually established a mission in Warsaw, Poland, where a significant number of the Ukrainian refugees are now living and housed, displaced. And for the purpose of working with the federal government, with Canada, to help them just to understand that Canada is a welcoming place, but within Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador is a welcoming place. So that's that initiative is now underway.
Okay. So what can families here expect when they reach out to the help desk?
Well, we're right now, we're in Ukraine because we're trying to get information.
Okay.
There's not a lot of clarity or detail as to what the situation is on the ground in Ukraine. That's why we've got 4 people who are fluent in Polish, German, Russian, French, English, working knowledge of Ukrainian. They're on the ground trying to help out to get where we are, what we need to know, what we don't know, what we do know. They're feeding back that information. But here's what we do know, and this is really important. I'm really happy to be on the show to explain this, is that in other refugee situations, Canada took the lead of designated the refugee, selecting the refugee that would come to Canada, transporting the refugee to Canada, processing the refugee, giving permanent residency to the refugee immediately upon arrival, and then sending the refugee to places where they were welcomed. Newfoundland and Labrador stepped up big time. That's not the situation here with the Ukrainians. Here, Canada is offering a 2-year visa to enter Canada and a 2-year work permit, but nothing further.
Okay.
We're lobbying the federal government to change that because we really do believe that increased supports are necessary. But here's what it means for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians who want to help out. We really appreciate the fact that people are offering their housing, but now we're in a stage, because having learned this information, we realize that we need to come forward with kind of a package of support.
Okay.
Housing, employment, wraparound supports, just getting the family situated, clothed and housed, and other supports. So if faith community, for example, or municipal governments, or just groups of people who come together and say, I want to help out, this is where the help desk can kind of contribute, is we'll come back to them and say, it is more than just housing which may be required. It's you need to reach out to employers to see if there are jobs that are available that aren't being filled in your own neighborhoods, in your own communities. Can jobs be offered? Because I think you and I both will agree, the number one factor in successful resettling is employment.
Yep.
And so that's a big component of this. So that's there are similarities here. This is a humanitarian crisis, which we all need to step up to and affect change. But there's also, within that humanitarian crisis, there are differences in that those Ukrainian people who are displaced are being invited to come to Canada by Canada. There's a special visa that's available to them. But at this point in time, there are no wraparound supports, none. So now I'm beginning, with that information now clear, I'm changing our course and looking at how do we mobilize the community at large in Newfoundland and Labrador to look at providing those supports as well.
Well, perfect. Thank you for explaining all of that to us. So if people wanted to reach out quickly, where would they connect with you?
It's the best way is ukrainianfamily@gov.nl.ca. That's the direct line to the support desk. It's shows like yours, Out of the Fog, that provide that, allow me to communicate to. There is no rule book. There is nobody knows exactly where this has gone and where it's been. There is no rule book here. We're creating this as we go, and communications is critical, and I really appreciate you allowing me just to communicate that reality.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll be right back.
If you have a comment about this program, we'd love to hear it. Email or call us, or send us your feedback through social media.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's extra special episode of Out of the Fog. I'd like to extend an extra thank you to Brian Cherwick and Minister Gerry Byrne for joining us today. If you would like to donate, please check out cufoundation.ca, which is the Canada-Ukraine Foundation. And now, before we leave you, Brian Cherwick with another song.
If you have a comment about this program, we'd love to hear it. Email or call us or send us your